7 minutes. That's all it took for West Ham to equalize after going down against Brighton.
Wow.
Kudus with a powerful header and Habibi gang. You should have seen this celebration. A hand-carved Ghanaian stool brought onto the pitch.
Really?
Now, let's unpack what was a pretty intriguing, though not necessarily thrilling match.
Yeah, it felt like a tale of two halves. Almost as if both teams were sleepwalking through the first 45 minutes.
Yeah. The holiday fixture congestion probably played a role, but even so, the lack of urgency was palpable. Like, Brighton had a few decent runs for West Ham, and João Pedro showed some flashes for Brighton.
Right.
But overall,
pretty
underwhelming.
Especially considering we had some highly anticipated debuts. Gruda for West Ham and Fulkrug for Brighton.
Yep.
Big money signing. Supposed to be a goal machine, but honestly, they were practically invisible out there.
Fulkrug in particular. After that £27 million transfer fee, you'd expect more than a completely featureless performance, as one of the reports put it. Harsh but fair.
Yeah. It's early days, of course, but this does raise questions about their integration into the squads and whether those big money signings were the right choices.
All right, let's move on to the second half, where things finally started to heat up. Brighton drew first blood in the 51st minute with a beautifully constructed goal.
Textbook stuff, really. Stupinian with a trademark long cross, perfectly placed for Dunk's header, which found Wafer, who then slotted it home with a clinical finish. You could see the relief on Hertzler's face. Finally, a breakthrough.
But then, boom! 7 minutes later, Bowen finds some space weaves past a couple of defenders, and his shot, though, saved by Verbruggen, falls kindly for Kudus, who heads it into the back of the net. Game on.
Yeah, that sequence really highlighted the contrast in the match. Brighton patient build-up exploiting the flanks, while West Ham relied more on individual brilliance and capitalizing on errors.
And can we talk about that Kudus celebration?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a hand-carved Ghanaian stool. Talk about us making a statement.
It's not just a celebration, it's a cultural moment. Kudus showcasing his heritage, his roots, and it's powerful. The crowd loved it too. For a brief moment, it felt like the match had come alive.
And that moment seemed to spark something in both teams, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. The tempo picked up, the tackles were flying, and both sides had chances to win it. But it's Brighton who will be ruining those missed opportunities, particularly in the closing stages.
Somerville's breakaway brilliantly blocked by Kufal. Then Minta's cross hits the post, and Ferguson, oh man, he had 2 golden chances.
Yeah.
One he completely missed. The other, he set up for Ayari, who was denied by a fantastic save from Fabiaski.
Brighton created enough chances to win 2 matches. But that lack of clinical finishing, that inability to deliver the knockout punch, it's becoming a recurring theme for them. Hertzler was visibly frustrated, talking about a circle of bad experiences and a need to regain a winning mentality.
Interesting how he frames it as a psychological barrier, almost like they're letting those past results affect their confidence in the present.
Yeah, and you can't help but wonder if that pressure, that weight of expectation is playing a role in these crucial moments.
On the other hand, Lopetegui seems somewhat content with a point acknowledging Brighton's dominance, but defending his team's performance.
You could sense his pragmatism, his understanding that West Ham at this stage are still finding their way. A point against a team like Brighton, even if it wasn't pretty, is something they can build on.
2 contrasting perspectives. 2 teams at different points in their journeys, but both walking away with a point that ultimately might not satisfy either.
It's fascinating how this match really exposed the fault lines in both teams. Brighton, with all their possession and intricate passing, ultimately lacked that killer instinct in the final third.
Yeah, it's like they're overthinking it, trying to be too precise, and in the process losing that spontaneity, that spark that separates good chances from goals.
Perhaps they're over-reliant on those crosses from wide areas. It worked for the first goal, but West Ham seemed to adjust crowding the box, making it difficult for Brighton's own backers to find space.
Maybe they need more creativity through the middle. Someone who can unlock defenses with a clever pass or a moment of individual brilliance. Someone like, dare I say, Kudus.
That's an interesting point. Kudus, even though he played for West Ham, showed that ability to take on defenders, to create something out of nothing. Brighton, with all their technical prowess, seemed to lack that element of unpredictability.
And speaking of missing elements, let's go back to those debut performances. Gruda for West Ham, a quiet night, but you could argue he was overshadowed by the midfield trio of Paqueta, Souček, and Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, but for Fulkrug, there's really no excuse. Playing as the lone striker service wasn't the issue. He had opportunities to hold up the ball, to bring his teammates into play, but he just couldn't impose himself physically, almost like he was hesitant, unsure of his role in Brighton's system.
Maybe it's the pressure of that price tag, the expectation to deliver immediately. Remember, Habibi gang, the Premier League, is a different beast. It takes time to adapt, to understand the pace, the physicality, the tactical nuances.
Absolutely. But for a club like Brighton, who have made shrewd signings in the past, this does feel like a gamble that hasn't paid off, at least not yet. Hertzler needs to find a way to integrate these new players quickly to get them firing, because the season waits for no one.
And with the festive period looming, the pressure will only intensify. Brighton needs to start turning those draws into wins, and they need their big money signings to start contributing. Otherwise, that circle of bad experiences that Hertzler talked about might become a downward spiral.
Meanwhile, for West Ham, this draw felt like a missed opportunity to capitalize on Brighton's struggles. They showed resilience, but also a lack of cutting edge in attack.
Apart from Bowen and Kudus, who else really threatened Brighton's goal, Antonio was isolated, Benrahma was largely ineffective, and Ings didn't even get off the bench.
Yeah, it raises questions about West Ham's depth, their ability to sustain a challenge on multiple fronts. They're still in the Conference League, but can they really compete in Europe and push for a top-half finish in the Premier League with this squad?
Lopetegui seems content with slow progress, with building something solid. But for a club with ambitions and a fan base that demands success, patience might wear thin if results don't improve. So, Habibi gang, we've dissected their performances, analyzed the tactics, but what does this result actually mean for both teams? Big picture stuff.
Well, for Brighton, this draw extends their winless streak to a worrying 5 games. They're still in the top half of the table, but the momentum has clearly shifted. That early season swagger, that belief that they could challenge the top 4, it's fading fast.
And with the festive fixtures coming thick and fast, they don't have much time to turn things around. You look at their next few matches. Arsenal, Manchester City, Liverpool. It's a daunting run.
Hertzler needs to find solutions, and quickly. Is it a tactical tweak, a change in personnel, or is it, as he suggested, a mental block that they need to overcome? Whatever it is, they need to rediscover that winning formula, because right now they're sleepwalking towards mid-table mediocrity.
And that would be a huge disappointment for a team that has shown so much promise. A team that plays such attractive, attacking football. They have the talent, they have the system, but they need that ruthlessness in front of goal, that ability to kill off games.
Right.
Meanwhile, for West Ham, this draw keeps them in that familiar territory, mid-table, inconsistent, capable of brilliance one week, frustratingly average the next.
Yeah.
Lopetegui has stabilized the ship, but has he really elevated the team? Have they made significant progress since last season? I'm not so sure.
They're still reliant on individual moments of magic, like that Kudus goal, rather than a cohesive team performance. They lack depth in certain areas, and their reliance on aging players like Antonio and Cresswell is becoming a concern.
It feels like they're at a crossroads. Do they push for a European spot, invest in the squad, and risk overstretching themselves? Or do they consolidate, focus on consistency in the Premier League, and accept that they're not quite ready to compete on multiple fronts?
These are questions that Lopetegui and the West Ham board need to answer. This draw against Brighton doesn't provide any clear solutions, but it does highlight the challenges they face.
So Habibi gang, there you have it. A match that promised much, delivered in moments, but ultimately left us with more questions than answers.
A match that highlighted the contrasting fortunes of two teams, both searching for that elusive consistency, that winning formula that will propel them forward.
We've done our deep dive, Habibi gang, but now is your turn. What were your key takeaways from this match? What surprised you? What are your predictions for Brighton and West Ham as we head into the festive period? Let us know in the comments. Join the official Habibi gang and be sure to subscribe to the Pundit Habibi podcast for more in-depth analysis and banter. Until next time, Habibi gang, keep the passion for the beautiful game alive.